So I was extremely disappointed by this response from Warren Smith, um, and I wanted to make a reply of my own because it ties to foundations of logic and the basics of how the legal system works. So let's take a look.
Wilson is playing a very specific game. Most people will not even see it. This has nothing to do with how I feel about either of these people. If you block out the noise and examine only the logic, suddenly you can see it in a different light.
Between
Yeah, but right away that's problematic. But let's do that and let's focus on the quote unquote logic.
0 to 100, what is the likelihood that you think Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk and killed him?
Based on the evidence right now, I don't know, I'd say 75, 85%.
Candace?
And then PBD turns to Candace, and this is the most important moment in the entire debate.
0%.
0%.
I'm at 0.
So
with what we've seen in terms of the evidence, I'm at 0%.
And that's the claim.
No. Hold on. So the question was, what do you think is the likelihood? And that's not the debate. That's just the starting point. It's just their personal opinion. The claim is different. But anyway, so he wants to frame it as she wants us to be convinced that the probability is 0%. That's not true. The claim is simply that he was not the one that committed the crime. That's it.
She says there's a 0% chance. I mean, we're talking certainty here.
you're not even saying that he didn't even shoot Charlie Kirk and
Right.
kill him.
I would, if you said, was he involved that day, as
Right.
I have consistently said on my platform, I would say yes, he was. I don't know what role he played, but as the shooter, 0%.
There it is. So she's saying he's involved, but he's a patsy. So somebody orchestrated something. Doesn't have to be the government. It could be like somebody he knows. Could be his partner, like, or anybody really. And he was just involved, but not necessarily the shooter. That's her claim.
If you're convinced there's a 0% chance, there must be some evidence of that beyond just, well, I think there's room for error.
Do you have any evidence for it?
For what? My percentage?
The fact that he didn't shoot and kill Charlie Kirk.
Yes.
I got excited. I was like, I'm going to learn something here because I want to figure this out. Based on the evidence she presents, I will change my mind.
We should
that's
go
fine.
over the actual evidence that we feel.
The first reason that I think, and I think it's compelling evidence, is that Tyler Robinson's rifle was found near the crime scene.
That would be an example of material evidence. We have something we can actually point to. Now, you can claim there's more to it, and that's what Candace does with DNA. This gets into a really interesting debacle.
You could have DNA on something that you've touched. You could have DNA on something that you've never touched. And to get DNA degradation, they've looked at pieces, items 20, 40 years on that don't have degradation.
Right here, she admits that items 20, 40 years on do not have degradation. Logically, therefore, degradation of DNA cannot be
Some items.
used to measure time. Therefore, we cannot determine whether or not Tyler Robinson was the last person to touch the gun based on your claim.
Nope.
Tyler Robinson cannot be used to measure time. Have degradation. Right here, she admits that items 20, 40 years on do not have degradation. Logically, therefore, degradation of DNA cannot be used to measure time.
But nobody is talking about time.
Therefore, we cannot determine whether or not Tyler Robinson was the last person to touch the gun based on.
No, that's. I don't even understand why I have to explain this, but well, apparently I do. So these are two different claims. One is the amount of time, like how much time did it pass between Tyler Robinson touched the gun and the gun was fired, right? It could be a year, Could be 20 years, could be a week. Like, we don't know, but nobody cares because that's not the question. The question is about degradation. So nobody's an expert on DNA degradation. So, but it seems to me, I mean, that's the argument that Candace Owens is bringing, is that if you have multiple people that touch an item, one is going to be degrading the DNA of another person. So you're going to have a person who has, I don't know, like 80%, sorry, maybe not that much. Let's say, where is the text here? Jesus. Here. Let's say one is 30, the other is 20, another guy is 10, and so on. One is 5. So, who is most likely to have touched it more recently? Like this guy, of course. So, if only 2 people have touched the gun, maybe you have something like one guy has 70 and the other guy 30. But the more people that touch the gun, there will be more degradation. So this is going to be reduced to, if it's 3 people, then this is going to be 40, and then it's going to be 20, and so on. Like one set of DNA is overriding the other, and so on. So it's like the most logical conclusion is that this guy was the last one, then this guy touched it, and then that guy, and then that guy. So the person with the least amount of degradation was the last one. That's the argument. Why is it the other way around? Like, if actually it's probably because they say 5 people, so it's another guy. But anyway, even here, what makes you think that this guy was the last one to use it? It doesn't make sense. So could there be an explanation? Sure, but that's the thing. That's what we're looking for. What is the explanation? Has nothing to do with time. This thing could have happened in 1 week, right? But the thing is, like, but why? Why are we seeing that particular evidence?
On your claim.
Yet Tyler Robinson's prints, amongst 5+ other prints, were the most degraded on that weapon.
Yeah, that doesn't actually give you any evidence in your corner for Tyler Robinson being a patsy.
Okay, there's more presence of somebody else's prints, and that could demonstrate that somebody is taking items from his house and putting it into various places.
But it also could demonstrate nothing.
Okay, I just described that for you, so I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, so I'm going to move on from that.
This reminds me when I'm trying to debate someone about trans ideology, and they're trying to explain how a man can be a woman. This doesn't make sense. Can you explain it again? I can't understand it for you. I can only explain it to you. This science is very obvious, Warren. I don't know why people seem to think this is some gotcha.
The intelligence of somebody else's print.
No. Let me explain. Let's see it again.
And that could demonstrate that somebody is taking items from his house and putting it into various places.
But it also could demonstrate nothing.
Okay, I just described that for you, so I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, so I'm going to move on from that.
This reminds me.
So both are right here, but that's not the problem. So I'm gonna play a clip which I think is very useful because this is about logic, but it's used in court cases to explain the difference between proof and evidence.
So there's no piece of evidence, because everything you're saying is also consistent with him just wanting to stay in power.
There's no such thing as dispositive proof when it comes to understanding what's in somebody's brain. It's
okay. I don't know why you keep saying that. How do we get convictions where mens rea is an essential part of the crime? Like for first-degree murder, we have to know that you intended to murder somebody, which is manslaughter, right, Glenn? We read people's states of mind all the time for criminal court.
I'm realizing now that you don't understand the difference between evidence and proof. Proof is something that is dispositive. So if someone steals something and they're caught on a videotape stealing it, then you have dispositive proof that they've done so. Usually in criminal cases, there's not proof, there's evidence, and the evidence is often conflicting, and a jury has to decide how to resolve that conflicting evidence. And that's why in a civil trial, they're told they have to believe just 51% or more in order to reach a verdict, whereas in a criminal trial, they have to believe beyond all reasonable doubt. But the way that works is you present evidence of intent. There's very rarely proof of intent, which
Sure,
is the
I'm
thing
sorry.
that you're looking for.
When
You
I'm
don't have
asking,
So I don't understand how that could be more clear. The same evidence can be used for two different claims because evidence is not proof. He said evidence can be conflicting. In fact, that's what happens in a case. One side presents some evidence, the other side presents some other evidence, and the cross examination is precisely to explain the same evidence in a different lens. So one example that I use is, for example, in a heliocentric system where the Earth orbits around the Sun. We observe the Sun rising from the east and setting on the west. But if it was the other way around, that the Sun orbits the Earth, as in the geocentric system, we will see the same thing, actually. So the same evidence can be used in both realities. So this notion that something is not evidence because it doesn't prove something, it doesn't, or it could be explained in a different way, that's just not true. That doesn't mean it's not evidence. It is evidence. So that's why it's usually wrong to say evidence for something. That's why I prefer to say evidence consistent with. So evidence can be consistent with two different explanations. It's still evidence, in particular for one of them.
That could demonstrate that somebody is taking items from his house and putting it into various
But it
places.
also could demonstrate.
So yes, it could demonstrate A, and then Andrew Wilson's reply is, it could also demonstrate B. Okay, that doesn't contradict the fact that it could demonstrate A. Still evidence consistent with A.
Nothing.
Okay, I just described that for you, so I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you, so I'm going to move on from that.
This reminds me when I'm trying to debate someone about trans ideology, and they're trying to explain how a man can be a woman. This doesn't make sense. Can you explain it again? I can't understand it for you. I can only explain it to you. This science is very obvious, Warren. I don't know why people seem to think this is some gotcha.
The entire basis for why you think that there's evidence for Tyler Robinson being the person that took the shot is based off of a hearing under Utah 1102 rules, meaning that they are doing the exact same thing that I am doing.
That's a big moment. If we can't listen to anything that could be categorized as hearsay, we can't listen to your claim that someone in the French government told you about an attempted assassination plot. Because
Yeah, but that's a straw man, because that's not what she's using. She's just using that they are both doing the same thing. She's not saying that what the prosecution is doing is wrong. She's saying, I'm doing the same thing as the prosecution. So we both can do the same thing. So I don't know what he's talking about.
that would be hearsay.
And what that means essentially is that the people who are making the statements can just say, Patrick told me that he did this on Monday. Patrick's not here, and that is, they can allow that into the hearing. The entire preliminary hearing was hearsay.
Yeah, I'm fine with your inferences.
But no, you just literally said I couldn't do that. Yes, I can.
No, I didn't. I'm just saying from your inference, how do we get to Patsy?
This is how you got to shoot her.
This was not actually a debate. She's not trying to argue that her claim is stronger. She's simply trying to argue, hey, it's viable and it's okay for me to think. And I agree.
But the entire substance of your argument is that people can't infer off of evidence.
No,
That's what you're saying
it's
to
not.
me.
And somehow she spins this into Andrew saying people can't infer off of evidence, which is the opposite of what I thought he was saying. I thought he was asking you for the evidence that you're using to infer your conclusion.
I'm telling you that was
And she did provide evidence, but evidence doesn't have to be dispositive. It doesn't have to be like 100% conclusive. Yeah, the fact that the same thing can be explained in other ways doesn't mean it's not evidence.
what the entire hearing allowed for. So the evidence that he is
Great, but
describing
we're asking you
that
now.
he is using to argue his case is all based on inference, not fact.
What? The court claims they have text messages in which he can.
And the fact that he says the court says a lot. He doesn't know any of this stuff. The court is like the middleman, is the mediator. It's the prosecution that has the text messages. So I don't think he has ever followed a case.
Confesses. Pointing to that is not an inference. It's a fact. The court claims to have that.
I'm asking,
The prosecution claims, and it doesn't matter. So the prosecution is presenting evidence to the court, and the court is going to decide if that evidence is sufficient to begin the trial, which has not started yet. So
how you get to the inference that even if you dispute that piece of evidence, that means patsy. I'm looking for the logical chain for how you get to that inference.
I didn't say it equals patsy. I think it is enough evidence that it should be explored.
The claim was there's a 0% chance.
no, that was not the claim. That was just what she was asked. What she thought, and that's what she said. But patsy means like he's being set up. Doesn't mean that there's a big government conspiracy or anything like that. It could be like in a criminal organization, like one guy is like, we're just gonna frame him, like he's still guilty but not of the crime that somebody else in the organization did. That's a patsy. So that's her claim, that he's being framed. And if there are alternative explanations, that is evidence that he's a patsy. Like, it does not prove, it's not dispositive proof, but it's a hint, and that's all that is needed. Even in a criminal case, the fact that somebody could be guilty, that's enough to start a trial. And if it's enough for a trial, it's enough to say like, hey, maybe he's innocent. I don't understand how that's not why that has to be explained.
Tyler Robinson did this. This is not over whether or not you can explore this or that.
It is plausible that somebody just took his gun and put it there. That's it.
That's it? Then how are you getting to patsy?
If
It's exactly that way. That is one evidence that he was set up and he's being framed. If somebody put the gun there, that's it. That's evidence for exactly what she's saying. I mean, what are we talking about?
there's
This is the
100 other
state's evidence,
plausible
and they're inferring.
explanations then, Candace, why is it
Again, if there are other explanations that does not contradict that is one of them. And if it's one of them, that is evidence.
that we should go with this idea that it was a patsy?
I'm not saying that we should go with the idea that it was a patsy. I am saying that there is.
Oh, I thought that was the whole defense, your whole claim
No,
today.
my whole claim was that there is more evidence that he is set up as a patsy.
How does that equal evidence of patsy?
I don't know how many times I can say this.
That's a valid question. And the response,
No, I mean, like I don't want to repeat the same thing, but apparently people don't get it, don't understand the difference between evidence and proof. So she provided evidence, and they are saying this isn't proof. She doesn't have to provide proof. In fact, there is very rarely proof. And anything that the prosecution provided isn't proof either. And that's going to be, the defense job is going to be to poke holes on that evidence in the trial. So not yet.
he continues to get his, I can't understand it for you, Andrew. I can only explain it to you. Explain what?
Whenever we're dealing with logic and we're dealing with making a logical inference, we're going to take the entire collaboration of evidence and then we're going to make inferences from that. You would do that with any type of logical proposition. Otherwise, you could never have a true or false claim.
But you just told me I couldn't.
So
do
when
that.
that never happened. You're just making stuff up.
That's exactly what he did. He said, like, your evidence is not conclusive because there are other explanations, so it can be just dismissed. But then, that's exactly the same thing that the prosecution is doing. So according to him, any single piece of evidence is not conclusive, but you can take the totality of it. But she's not letting her build the totality of it. She just, that's not evidence, that's not evidence. But there are other explanations for the blurry videos, there are other explanations for this, there are other explanations for that. It's the same, it's exactly the same thing.
That's not saying you can't make inferences. He's just saying your inference doesn't add up to Patsy. It doesn't make sense. That's all he's saying. He's not saying you can't think.
So I asked you how, with the inference you made, you got to the conclusion.
Okay, so I would like to know how you got to the conclusion, and I'm just going to throw it right back at you because
Yeah,
for some
that's
reason
fair.
you permit yourself to do it, and that's what I'm demonstrating is that you permit yourself to do it, and then you say when I do it, it's a conspiracy.
But what about Andrew Wilson's inference does not make sense? Confession, gun found, DNA, security footage, inference. Which one of those doesn't make sense?
If you're asking,
But she's not saying that it doesn't make sense. She's saying she's doing the same thing.
for my inference, why I think it's Tyler Robinson is because A, Tyler Robinson said in his text messages, you'll be able to see me on security footage.
That's jumping to conclusion because you see a photo of a text message and you assume that Tyler Robinson wrote that text message. That has not been established yet. That's the whole point of a trial. That evidence is going to be presented, and then if the defense cannot poke holes into that evidence, then you can conclude that yes, he probably wrote that text message. But so far, that's not. We should not assume. So, is there a text message? Yes. Did he wrote it? We don't know.
The campus. Said it in his own messages. On top of that, twigs, yes, you can pull them up if you want to fact check that. He did say. On
Yeah,
top
I would.
of
I'm
that,
sorry. I actually think I really did miss that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I
Yeah.
don't remember him saying you're going to see me in.
Yeah, I'm
in footage.
paraphrasing,
Can
but
we
it was
pull that
close to
up?
it.
Yeah,
If
I
you
don't-
may
I feel-
have
I
it.
think
And
that's
by the
not
way,
right.
Right there, she said, yeah, I don't think that's right.
It was me. Look at the pictures from the surveillance footage. It was me. Okay. I literally said to you, it's not an oof. I said I didn't remember this, and I'm happy to have a fact check on that. Okay. I didn't call for the fact check saying you're wrong. I literally said I
Okay.
don't remember that.
Well, rewind. But
Yes, actually, that was the first thing she said, and right after that, she said the same thing. She was just, I'm not sure that's true.
Okay.
So when we're talking about the messages themselves, they seem totally valid. I have no idea why they wouldn't be valid. And I have not heard any good explanation for why it is that these messages should even be questioned.
Parking aside the intuition of just something feels wrong here, which you should follow your intuition.
But it has to be tempered with logic, reason, explanatory power, and evidence, not just intuition.
That's why we're parking it aside. Intuition's the first step.
we don't get to the second step. She just continues to talk about intuition.
Nobody came in medium, right? No one came in like there were some interesting aspects. This was a little suspect. But I do think it's enough to go to trial. They all came in like they were passing away and we're going to die from being
Well,
overwhelmed.
they're trusting their intuition.
Okay.
I guess we still haven't parked it. All right.
Parking that aside. Parking
Okay.
aside, just a general intuition that some might be second messages.
What did she just say?
Could there be someone who logged into his Discord? Could there be someone who logged in to his Apple?
I mean, it's possible. Do we have any evidence indicating that?
George could be.
But that's not how it works. It's the prosecution that has the burden of proof. And in a court of law, the defense is has all the right to say how did that message got there. Like, let's look at the servers. If we don't have the data that shows, like, okay, what is the IP, what is the source of that, anything that validates that who wrote that evidence is dismissed. They don't have to show that it's not true. It's the prosecution that has the burden of proof to show that it is coming from him.
Sending text messages right now. We are married. He has every login that I have. And remember, he's up for a death sentence.
So there's room for doubt. Andrew even says that himself. That's totally fine.
That discovery was not met by the time we got to preliminary hearing. So I remain unconvinced by these text messages. Just as you feel convinced by them, I feel unconvinced by them.
Okay.
Remaining unconvinced is different than saying there's a 0% chance he pulled the trigger. That's convinced. What convinced you?
We never.
Yeah, the totality of the evidence. And if you keep dismissing all of it, then you're never gonna get there. But every one of those things is evidence.
Get to the thing that I am disputing.
Well, I was just providing an answer. We were coming back in from a break.
It didn't look like she wanted to have a debate. She just needed to make it through this thing. And she's very good at that.
Here's the questions that I have.
Wait, before we get into that, I would like to just reply to that. So just to be clear, we agreed to debate our claims, and then I agreed publicly that I have no issues having a conversation with you about other things that I've discussed that were outside of the court hearing and things like other evidence that's come across our lap and things that we've been speaking about. But I just do want to make it clear to viewers that for whatever reason you think that you have a right to sort of depose me.
I'm not deposing you. I just want to ask you some questions.
She's walking a tightrope here. She's not trying to argue that her claim is more viable than Andrew's.
Because you kept saying I'm Joe Rogan.
No. A lot of people are how can we say this? Questioning what was the whole point of this? Why is Andrew Wilson there? Why did he pay, or somebody paid $300,000? And the fact that he is the one that wants to switch from the evidence, from the case, to talk about something completely different, and that seems to be his goal. And more of the debate is going to be spent on that. And all she's doing is pointing that out. So the audience knows, like, hey, the debate is over. We are switching now to something else. And many people are questioning, like, why didn't she bring this? Even Warren, he said, like, why didn't she bring this or that? Because Andrew wanted to stop the debate and talk about something else. And she's just pointing that out. Like, this is what's happening.
They have no evidence. And now you're like, let's move away from the evidence. Let's talk about transcendentals.
Yeah, okay. Anyway.
Candace makes a good argument that, hey, I'm just coming to my own conclusions. I'm just thinking independently.
So why are you so upset when people say they don't find it
If
convincing?
that was the limitation of the claims that you made, if it was just, wait a second, there's a little bit of problems. There's some problems in this case that I have questions for that I want answers to. Nobody would have a problem, actually. At least of all me.
The people.
It's just not a little bit, but okay.
People who have their minds made up will likely attack even me for saying this, and that's okay though. What is the alternative? I'm not going to compromise on logic itself.
A lot of this conjecture that's based on literally nothing that leads from no inferences whatsoever. Like you couldn't even infer it logically. That's the problem. The problem has never been whether or not you just said, you know, there's not enough in this case so far until we get to the trial. I remain unconvinced. I'm sure there's tons of people who remain unconvinced yet until we get to the trial. I think that's fine. I think it's fine. There's people who are convinced too. That's never been my problem. My problem is the claims which are external to that.
She got Andrew on the ropes in that one interaction, being able to recall the 7 counts, though it's not that relevant to who actually killed Charlie Kirk. That's the thing about facts and logic. It's either there or it isn't. You can attack the credibility. You can try and embarrass. It's like a truck driver can put forth logic. A professor can fail to put forth logic, but that was well played on her part. Beyond that, I'm not seeing much. How are you 100% sure that Tyler Robinson did not pull the trigger? And that's the claim.
So I'm just extremely disappointed by Warren Smith. He keeps saying like, I'm just following the logic. I'm just following the logic. I don't think he understands the purpose of logic, because it's not like one thing like a mathematical proof. He doesn't understand the difference between evidence and proof, and why that matters in a court case. The burden of proof, the whole concept of burden of proof, why it's crucial in a court of law and in logic in general. Like, yes, Candace Owens made a claim about the guy being a patsy, so she has a burden of proof. But the way to meet that claim is exactly the same way as the prosecution, which is to provide a bunch of evidence and make inferences on that evidence. The fact that some of that evidence has alternative explanations does not disqualify it as evidence. In fact, that's the whole point of the case, that the defense has a chance to criticize that evidence and say, like, could this blurry video have another explanation? Could that be somebody else? And so on. For every piece of the evidence, there will be questions. So the fact that Andrew Wilson said, like, oh, had some questions and said, oh, could there be an alternative explanation? Sure. Just like there could be an alternative explanation for all the evidence provided by the prosecution. Why is there a double standard? That's not just following the logic, that's the opposite. Like, you started from a conclusion and then you are walking it backwards. So yeah, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna follow him anymore. Like, what was that? Anyway, so that's it. Leave a like if you find any of these insightful. Cheers.